Thank you.
The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank the ranking member, and I thank the witnesses for appearing. Dear friends, as witnesses, if you are familiar with, and I believe you are, I just want to build the record. If you're familiar with the KKK, would you kindly extend a hand into the air? I believe you are. Let the record reflect that all are. And are you familiar with their cross burning? They call it cross lighting. If you're familiar with them, I'm sure that you know that they do. Would you kindly raise a hand? All hands are in the air for the record. And is it true that, they use this as a means of symbolizing their faith? They claim to be Christians, the members of the Klan. And in burning or lighting the cross, they are exemplifying their faith. I believe as persons familiar with the Klan doing the kind of work that you do, you probably know this too, but let me just ask you to raise your hands if you know this. Raise your hands, please. Okay, all hands. Now, have we ever have you any information wherein it has been widely said that when a Klansman commits an act of terrorism, that this was Christian terrorism? Has that ever been widely used, Christian terrorism? If the answer is no, do not raise a hand. No hands are up, so it has not been widely used. We do know that if persons of the Islamic faith commit an act of terrorism, there's a commonly used term, Islamic terrorism. Have you heard this term, Islamic terrorism? If so, would you raise your hand, please? All have raised their hands. I'm putting you through this exercise because it seems to me that there's a mindset that has to be dealt with. When white men calling themselves Christians commit acts of terrorism, we don't define it as such. We don't say Christian terrorism. But if a person who is of the Islamic faith does it, we connect the faith to the violence. I don't think that the Klan is a Christian organization. I'm the grandson of a preacher. I know that they don't live up to the tenets of Christianity. Then I don't think that those persons who are of the Islamic faith who may commit some violent act or who claim they are, I don't really think that that's Islam. So I'm mentioning this to let you know that we have a problem in terms of our mindset that we have to deal with. Next point quickly, and I'll tie it all together. If I said there were some very fine people among the bigots, the racists, the Klansmen in Charlottesville, there were some very fine people among them, would that be an appropriate thing for a member of Congress to say? If you think so, raise your hand. Let the record reflect that no one has raised a hand. So if the president says it, some very fine people among those who were preaching, Jews will not replace us, blood and soil. The president says it. Is it appropriate for the president to say such a thing? If you think that it is not appropriate, raise your hand. If you think it's not appropriate for the president to say what you just said would be inappropriate for a member of Congress to say. If you think it's not appropriate for the president to say there were some fine people among those folk in Charlottesville where a person lost her life, raise your hand. You think it's inappropriate for the president to say it? Raise your hand.
Sir, if I may, at least from the DHS perspective, I think the way we look at it and the way we go after these...
Excuse me, please. I greatly appreciate your perspective, but I'm limited on time. So you were quick. You had no problem saying that members of Congress should not use such language. But you you refuse to acknowledge that the president should not use such language?
If I could just jump in.
Yes, quickly, please.
I would say for me personally, it's just not up my place as a career government official to comment on what either members of Congress or the president
Well, you already
choose
did.
to say.
But too late now, see.
Okay, well.
You already did. You already said that it's inappropriate for members of Congress. But when it gets to the president.
I don't think I commented one way or the other. But
No, you did. You're on the record. You raised your hand. You're on the record. Here's the point. We who hold public trust have to have the same standard for everyone. Same standard for the KKK that we have for persons who claim to be of the Islamic faith. Same standard for, and they are not, same standard for the president that we have for members of Congress. If you can't uphold the same standard, you're doing your country a disservice, my friends. I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you very much.